Hello everybody and welcome back to Spooky Season, where for the entire month of October we're making 9 different videos centred around horror games, so make sure to subscribe to see them all. But today we're looking at A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead, a game I was intrigued by and finally got around to playing recently. A game adaptation of a movie that was basically built on tension, silence and jump scares that made popcorn fly out of everybody's hands. Perfect recipe for a horror game, right? You'd think this would be a stealthy, nerve-wracking experience where one wrong move means instant death and maximum pants-sweating terror. Instead, what we actually got is a slow, clunky walking simulator where your greatest enemy isn't the terrifying alien creature, it is accidentally brushing past a red barrel. We're going to start with the gameplay because tonally, this is just a complete mismatch with the films. The movies work because silence was life or death. The tension wasn't about what you could see, it was about what you could hear, or what you couldn't hear. Every step felt risky, every creak made your heart race. The game takes that brilliant concept and turns it into chores. You are slowly walking around, you are using sandbags, you're fiddling with valves. The gameplay loop is basically walk slowly, pick up something, and don't touch the barrels. And sure, sometimes the monster does show up, but the tension just isn't there. After the first hour or so, I feel like in terms of scares, you've seen everything the game has, and it never gets scarier than that first hour. The creature itself is almost comical. It is always in plain sight, lumbering around like it's lost its keys. There is no dread of where it might be, because it's always right there, in the open, pacing back and forth like a security guard, and it's not even there that often. Don't get me wrong, you don't need the creature in horror to always pop up and say hello. It's why classics such as Alien and Jaws work. The xenomorph and the shark are barely on screen. That's how the tension rises, so I understand. But what this game does a lot of the time is make it so the enemy isn't actually in the area you're in at all. You can run around and do what you like, but if you do make a very specific noise, they will, quote, spawn the enemy in and you will be killed in a cutscene. The rules don't even feel consistent. You can bump into basically anything, you can knock over half a room's worth of stuff, and as long as none of it has that video game red paint slapped on, then you're fine. Apparently, in the world of this apocalypse, red is the only colour that makes sound. You will tiptoe like a ninja through a room, you will brush against something that's red, and instantly it's game over. Every environment starts feeling less like a horror set piece, and more like a really weird video game level where the floor is lava, except the lava is just red paint. Now, when the alien actually does appear in stealth sections, it should be horrifying, but instead it just isn't. You toss a brick or a bottle, and the thing becomes completely obsessed with it like a cat chasing a laser pointer. The bottles aren't even red, so I'm not sure why they're even interested. You can basically kite it around forever by throwing random things. It doesn't feel like you're surviving against a terrifying predator. It feels like you're babysitting a really violent Labrador. But the game also likes to cheat. Sometimes you'll be hiding in perfect silence. You have not made a noise at all. You are crouched in some random corner, and the monster just decides to walk directly into you. You made no sound, you made no mistake, there was no noise spike, just instant death because the AI suddenly remembered that it has agency. And those deaths don't feel scary. They don't even feel fair. They feel like the game flipped a coin to decide whether you were going to live or die, and moments like that really take you out of the experience and destroy any immersion that the game did have. And the worst part is that each level tries to spice things up with a gimmick. You've got bear traps in something, sandbags, and each time it's interesting, and then it's gone. Each mechanic is thrown away after its use in one level, like they were terrified of making the game too difficult or, heaven forbid, fun. By the time you reach the final level, all of these cool ideas have been abandoned. There's no traps, there's no noise puzzles, nothing's carried over. It's just, the last level is just turning valves. Imagine building a survival horror game about silence and monsters and ending it with a plumbing section. That is not a climax, it is a maintenance job. The final level should be a culmination of all of the things that you've learnt throughout the game, but the gimmicks just completely disappear. And that's really the running theme here. The game constantly reminds you that you are playing a game. Horror works when you forget the rules and start to believe in the threat. But in The Road Ahead, the threat is just a checklist. Don't touch the red paint, throw the bottles, slowly crouch across a level, and then do it again. And I do understand, this is a Quiet Place game, so of course that is generally what you're going to be doing. But the issue is that the game never lets you forget that it's a game. There is zero immersion in any of it. So by the halfway mark of the game, any fear the game did have is completely gone, because the gamey systems are just so visible, so clunky, that instead of dreading this monster, you're just rolling your eyes at its patrol routes and waiting for it to move out of the way. However, what I will say is the whole monster can hear you through the mic thing is pretty cool, and definitely suits this game more than it would any other horror game, given that this is A Quiet Place. But it's still little more than a gimmick that makes you think, wow, that's cool. But what about the story? Honestly, the story of A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead is fine, and I don't mean that as a backhanded compliment, it really is fine. For this kind of game, horror adjacent, clearly mid-budget, you don't expect some sweeping emotional epic. What you do expect is something that gives you enough of a reason to keep moving through its levels, and to its credit, The Road Ahead does give you that. I did care about escaping. I wanted to see my character make it through. I wanted other characters to make it through. I wanted to get to the end. The setup does its job. You've got a family at the beginning, there's danger, the monsters are there, there's all this stuff going on with other people as well, because humans are obviously always the real threat in apocalypses, and survival is the goal, and it's paced well enough that you're never completely bored of the cutscenes or the dialogue, so on a purely functional level, the story succeeds. But that is as far as it goes. The characters themselves are completely forgettable. None of them have that spark of personality. They exist to walk you from one plot beat to the next, and once you put the controller down, they vanish from your brain like yesterday's dreams. And the plot itself is incredibly predictable. You can basically draw a bingo card of horror thriller cliches and tick off the squares as you play. By the halfway point, you are less on the edge of your seat and more quietly predicting what is about to happen, and you'll get it right a lot of the time. With that being said, there are quite a few, I won't say set pieces, but I would say moments that I thought, wow, that was actually really cool. The story, I feel, isn't going to be in a video game top 5 stories list or anything, but I thought it was one of the better aspects of the game, to be honest. And predictable doesn't always mean bad. Sometimes a story that hits all the familiar beats can still work, because the execution is strong enough to keep you invested. And here, the execution is, again, fine. The cutscenes are competent, the voice acting is decent, the pacing keeps things moving. So while you're never blown away at any point, you're also never groaning in pain at what you're watching on screen. But that safety could also be conceived as a problem. The game never takes any form of risk with its story, which is an issue because it also never takes any form of risk with its gameplay. There are no twists that make you sit up and go, wow, that surprised me. There are no moments that will linger with you when you finish the game. It doesn't even lean to the A Quiet Place universe in any particularly clever way. The films were all about family dynamics under extreme pressure, about how silence forced you to express emotion differently. The game nods in that direction, but never really explores it, and instead keeps things very, very surface level. Monster bad, family good, must escape. And the result is a story that does exactly what it needs to do, and not a thing more. It motivates you just enough to keep going, to care about survival, to not switch the game off, but once you finish the game, you will not be talking or thinking about these characters, you will not be revisiting any of it in your head, you won't be thinking about it the next day. But let's now talk about the part that should have been the game's biggest strength. The fear factor, the atmosphere, the world. A Quiet Place as a movie was iconic because of how oppressive its silence felt. Every creak of the floorboards, every crunch of the leaves, every tiny sound carried weight. The whole world felt like a death trap, and this game just doesn't. After the opening hour, the sense of dread just isn't there anymore. You realise that there is no unpredictability. You know the rules, and you know just not to break them, and you will be fine. The creature shows up in its scripted patrols every now and then. The environments are littered with big red no-no zones, and suddenly, you're not scared anymore. You're just navigating a level. And the immersion just cracks, and what should feel like a living nightmare just turns into another set of overt game mechanics you're managing. And that's the other big problem. You can always see the monster. Horror thrives on what you can't see. In the films, the creatures were terrifying precisely because they could be anywhere. Here, it's like you have someone just stomping around in your house. You know exactly where they are, and it's annoying. And because of that, the fear factor dies instantly. True horror is when you forget the systems and just live in the dread. But in The Road Ahead, you are always aware of the systems, and you are always aware that you are playing a video game. At the end of the day, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead isn't broken, it isn't unplayable, and it isn't offensively bad. It's just painfully average, and when you're adapting a horror franchise built entirely on unique, terrifying tension, average might be the worst outcome possible. It could have been something special, something memorable, but instead, it's kind of just a mess of systems chores and wasted potential. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I really hope you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, as it really does help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, then make sure to subscribe, because I upload at least one video a week for October. It's been 2 because of the whole spooky season thing, which is coming to an end, and I'm very sad about that, but we've still got more coming, so make sure to subscribe. But have a nice day, and goodbye.
Sometimes. You good to head back?
Sure.